Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today is from a woman who tells us that she was in a car accident apparently 2 months ago, and the policeman at the site of the accident and even the person who hit her both agreed that it was the other driver's fault, and so she left that scene thinking, everything is going to be fine. However, the person who hit her had suffered some serious injuries, and apparently the costs are more than he can afford. So she got a notice that she's being sued for the costs of injuries, and she's totally perplexed and stressed and frustrated. Can't get it out of her mind, and I guess right now funds for her are pretty tight, so she's very concerned what's going to happen to her. She has a lawyer, and she faxed to us, she emailed us the story that she was inspired to pull together a lot of evidence and notes that she'd gathered over the last 2 months. And just as things worked out, the lawyer contacted her and asked if she had any evidence or facts that she could send him. So she had something like 10 or 12 pages. So she went to Staples to fax the documents to the lawyer, to her lawyer, and she relates to us that when she came out of Staples after she faxed the papers, she was very stressed, but she noticed there was a car parked in front of hers now, and it had a license plate number 777, and she knows from listening to our shows that 3 sevens is God's powerful number that indicates God's permission, his power, and his participation. So she's feeling much more relieved now, and she's gotten some feedback from the lawyer since, and it looks like things are going to be fine. So she wanted to let us know about all of this coincidence in her life. Our next story is from a man who tells us that his wife has expired, but he has noticed all in one day that him and his 3 children all have holy so-called angel numbers in their phone numbers. His phone number has 3 8s, 888, which, as we know, is the number that reminds us of the holy name of Jesus. One of his children also has 3 8s in their number. Another child has 3 sevens in their number, and that's the number that reminds us of the power, permission, and participation of God. And one of his children has, amazingly, 3 4s and 3 sevens. And 3 4s reminds us of the Blessed Virgin Mary and her rosary, and 3 5s reminds us of grace, 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 which means the presence of God. And in the Bible, you may remember the angel appears to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and the angel says to Mary, "Hail Mary, full of grace," which means full of the presence of God. So he wanted to relate that he feels very blessed that him and his 3 children all have these holy numbers in their phone numbers. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who read our posting on Facebook and LinkedIn, where we explained that it's very helpful when you have some serious praying to do. If let's say there's an illness in your family or some financial problems and you're trying to talk to God about them, or anything that's serious like that, say you're out of work for a long time, it's very helpful to get to a holy building, a holy place, because the environment that you're in helps you to get into the mood or the zone or the feeling. For example, that's why a lot of people go to Jerusalem, because it's holy ground. Jerusalem is mentioned in the Bible for many, many years, for thousands of years. So going to Jerusalem, just getting off the plane and walking in Jerusalem puts you in the zone of, many miracles have happened there, and a lot of holy saints have visited Jerusalem. Or like going to Rome. I guess I haven't gone to Rome myself, but I guess going to Rome has the same effect. So if you can get to some holy buildings, like a church, for example, especially if a church looks like a church. I mean, some churches don't look like churches. They look like, just rooms or houses. But if you can get to a church that looks like a church, that'll help you get in the zone. So this person had read that, and they had some problems they were trying to deal with. And on one particular day, they went to Mass. I don't know if it was on a Sunday or a holy day, but they went to Mass. And normally, after the Mass, he tells us that there's usually a lot of people at the Mass, and people linger. And he indicated that normally there's like 10 or more people that linger after the Mass to pray. I guess they also realize being in a holy building is beneficial to praying. And in this particular case, though, this was unusual for him. Nobody remained. He was the only one left, and he had just recently read our article about it's good to get to a holy building, and he had some things he needed to pray about. And so he was relating to us that it was spot on, exactly what he needed, and he really experienced a gift from God. He thinks that God perhaps had the people leave for some other reasons, but it gave him this sense of aura that he was all alone in this church that really looked like a church, and he was all alone, just him and God alone, and it was very effective, very helpful for him. And he said he was there for about 30 or 40 minutes after Mass had finished, and it was extremely helpful to him. So I'm using all this to tell you that he had this great coincidence miracle, because on this particular day, where normally there's like 10 people left after services, everybody left, and he was all alone, just him and God, and it had great effects, great benefits for him. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who tells us they had to go for a CAT scan X-ray for some serious considerations that the doctor wanted to get some CAT scan X-rays, and they were troubled about it, concerned obviously, but they felt this was a wonderful coincidence miracle because the technician who was taking the test when they went for the CAT scan was so impressed, and impressed this person as well, because they said that their husband plus their son had the same birthday as the person who was getting the CAT scan done. And she said she has 2 nieces in her family, her nieces, who also have the same birthday. So he felt this was some amazing coincidence, because the technician was telling him that there were 4 people that live in her family, very close to her, 4 people who have the same exact birthday as his. So he certainly knows it's a coincidence miracle, but he's got his fingers crossed that it's going to be a definite positive coincidence miracle. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who read our first book, book number 1. That's the title of our first book is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles, Book 1. And he read it, and he's so happy to tell us about. He read the miracle that was in chapter 3, page 49. Once again, chapter 3, page 49. It's a story that happened to me. It must be something like 45 years ago now. But I was having, I had some issues I had to resolve, some serious problems, and I was inspired to go to an empty church. It was late at night, a winter night. It was very dark and very cold. But anyway, the story is chapter 3, page 49. And what happened in my visit way back then, about 45 years ago, I was very positive. I had a miracle happen to me during that visit, and I was very positive that God was inspiring me about some things he wanted me to do. And ever since then, I've had proof that that was true based on how my life has unfolded. So anyway, this person recently read that, and he's so excited to tell me that he had a similar experience. He went to a church late at night. He was the only one in there. It was dark. He didn't say it was cold. I don't know what state he's in. But in any event, he had a wonderful experience similar to mine. He was positive that God was inspiring him. And he tells us that in the process, based on that night, he has decided to become a Catholic priest. And he's already in the process of becoming a Catholic priest because during that night where he was all alone in an empty church, he was inspired in a few ways that God wanted him to be a priest. So I have 3 scriptures I'd like to just give you because when we tell people that God talks to them or God inspires them or God can tell you what to do in your life, people wonder, how do you hear God and what's it like when you hear God? Some people wonder anyway. So I have 3 powerful scriptures I'll give you. Maybe you want to jot them down. And before I tell you, I should say, there's been 10,000 saints in history, 10,000 documented stories over the last 2,000 years. You can Google any saint's name you want, just Google it, and you'll notice we've had 10,000 saints. And every saint that I have read about has spoken to God with mental telepathy. God speaks to them and they speak to God, mental telepathy. That's why the word inspired means the Spirit's coming into your mind. The word idea means God's talking in your mind. And intuition means God is tutoring you. That's why those words are used, because all of them indicate mental telepathy. So the 3 scriptures I'd like to give you that'll help you confirm this for yourself, that God does speak to you mentally. Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 23. Once again, Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 23. Next, also Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 35. That's chapter 23, verse 35. And next, also Jeremiah, easy to remember, chapter 33, verse 3. Again, chapter 33, verse 3. So the book of Jeremiah reminds everybody that all we need to do is ask God questions, and God will figure out how to get us the answer. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.